The following episode of The Cards Court was recorded on Monday, November 27th. The Cards Court is a presentation of SportsLink Digital Radio, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie. Chirp, chirp, and go Cards!
Good afternoon and welcome to this week's episode of The Cards Court, the #1 weekly Ball State basketball show in the world. I'm your host, Griffin Leonard. Joining me this week as my co-host is Jordan Klimes, and joining us later on the show will be Ball State Athletic Director Jeff Mitchell. With that, the court is now in session. Jordan, thanks for joining me this week. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I've heard a lot of great things about this show, listened to it a couple of times. Love the guests that you've been able to have on this show, and now we got Jeff Mitchell today, so it's going to be really exciting.
No, Jeff is somebody I've been hoping to get on the show for a couple weeks, and excited to have him on. I'm glad to have you on as well. It was a big week in Ball State basketball, Jordan, as both teams were at it twice over the course of the week, and Tuesday, Wednesday games, and then the doubleheader Friday. And if you missed those games, just to quickly cycle through those, Ball State men's basketball started the week off with a win. They got the job done 75-58 over USC Upstate. Then on Wednesday, the women's basketball team went on the road, got a big win against IUPUI. They took that one 67-63 in a game that was a lot closer than a lot of people thought. Then the big doubleheader, Black Friday doubleheader that Ball State Sports had really advertised for a long time, got a lot of people excited about, and boy did the attendance show. Men's basketball won 92-74 against Arkansas Pine Bluff, and then with Notre Dame in the house, Ball State women's eventually lost from the score of 90-59. But let's talk about the attendance first, Jordan. 5,500 for the women's game, a little over $4,000 for the men's game. It was a program record for the women's basketball team for attendance at home. Amazing to see.
Yeah, and it was a game that was very highly anticipated by everyone. Everyone wanted to go and see that one. And just think about it. It was over Thanksgiving break, too. So imagine how many more people would have been there if it was not timed where it was. But you really can't change how that goes. But very impressive to see, especially because this team is so good. It's really got a lot more fans in attendance to go see the game around the Muncie area and in the Ball State community who want to go watch this Cardinals team play, because the women's basketball team right now, I mean, they're showing off this year, and they've shown a lot of signs of potential, and they did in this game as well.
Yeah, the Ball State women's team taking on a very good Notre Dame side in that game. And you're right, yeah, the no student section, there was a lot of support from the Muncie community. But, yeah, you got to think about what that would have looked like if it was a Friday night 1 week ago. But instead, we look at this game, and for Notre Dame, Hannah Hidalgo, 25 points, 5 for 8 shooting. She just made it impossible for the Cardinals to get going, because defensively, outstanding as well, 8 steals.
Right. Yeah, I mean, she's one of the best. She's a freshman player. I don't know if you said that, but she's a freshman, and she's been a standout for Notre Dame. That's a really good basketball team. And for Ball State coming in, they wanted this game to be a little bit closer at the end of the day. But still, for the Cardinals, they played really well. And I think there's a lot of positives to take away from it. I think it's probably the most scrappy game I've ever seen this Cardinals team play. So they were flying all over the court. There was no lack of hustle in this game. If you're going to lose a game by around 30 points or whatever it was, you don't want it to be because of lack of hustle. And it was not that for Ball State. They had a bunch of steals as a team. And they had a good amount of turnovers as well. So they were flying all over the court. Just Notre Dame, they're just a better team. They're taller, they're more aggressive. But Ball State, they left it all on the court, and I was very proud as a Cardinal fan to watch that.
Yeah, you mentioned the turnovers. 29 turnovers forced by this Ball State team. That is ridiculous in a normal game. And it's even more ridiculous against a ranked Power 5 team like Notre Dame. And looking at Ball State, It was just kind of doomed from the beginning. They were outscored early. The only offense they had in the first quarter was really just Madeline Bischoff hitting a couple of deep triples. But as the game went on, Ball State started to lock in a little bit more. They won the fourth quarter. But looking at the stats, Allie Becky, 11 points, which tied with Bischoff as the leading scorer. But Becky looked so uncomfortable in that game. 8 turnovers, and it seemed like whenever she had the ball in that first half, she was just suffocated immediately.
And that's what it kind of felt like for most of Ball State. And I think a thing that kind of went off of that is that Ball State decided to start taking forced shots. They were not in good situations where they should be taking shots. And so I think that was a big problem as to why they got down by so much is because they were trying to force a lot early. They felt the relentless pressure from Notre Dame and were trying to shoot instead of work the ball around. They could not work inside the key. And as you said, it was Bischoff who hit a couple of threes to start it off. But besides that, Ball State could just not work offensively. It took too long for them to kind of figure out their game plan. I think if they played again, Ball State would do better just because they know, hey, we got to watch what type of shots we're taking. We got to try to work it inside, and we got to continue the steals and turnovers, which they did. But like I said, still a lot of positives to take away.
Ball State women's basketball gets about a week off before their next game. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Jordan, let's talk briefly before we hit this break. Let's talk men's basketball. 2-0 on the week, 2 home games, 2 winnable games, and the Pine Bluff game was an interesting one. They actually were down at halftime in that game, 46-40, before thoroughly dismantling Arkansas Pine Bluff in the second half. But looking at the box score, Joe French stands out to me, 29 points. He was on fire from behind the arc, and he wasn't hitting them from 2 inches behind the line either. He was going Steph Curry range.
Yeah, I mean, very well done by Arkansas Pine Bluff to beat Ball State in the first half, but the Cardinals, very well-coached team by Michael Lewis. And just looking at what they've done this year in that game, Bashir Jihad, 18 points, Mickey Pearson. These are 2 veteran guys for Ball State that they're really hoping take a step up this year, because the Cardinals lost a couple of guys, but now they still got these veteran presences here, and they're people that they have to take a step up this year. We saw Mickey in the game previous to this one against USC Upstate. He set his career high in points, and then Bashir, one of those players, is taking a much more of a bigger role this year. He's stepping up as well.
Yeah, you look at Ball State, and they spread out the scoring very well in that game. 5 guys in double figures. Trent Middleton Jr., Mason Jones with 8 each off the bench, and a lot of good signs to look at for both of these teams, and a lot of questions in turn for our guest today. We're going to go to a break. When we come out of the break, it'll be the Ball State Athletic Director, Jeff Mitchell. We can't wait to have him on, and you're going to have to just wait 60 seconds. We'll be right back with Jeff Mitchell here on the Cards Court, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie.
Hi, I'm Chris Taylor, Senior Director of Digital Sports Production and Ball State SportsLink, the nation's first 4-year academic digital sports production program. It's the intersection of sports and storytelling, where we're training the next generation of digital content producers. It's truly unique because a lot of schools have sports broadcasting and sports journalism, and while we have elements of both of those, our focus is on sports media production and the behind-the-scenes work. And I think that's what separates us at Ball State, because a lot of schools will teach students to learn production or live event streaming, but we're teaching storytelling. And that is producing long-form, layered feature stories where we can humanize our student athletes and our coaches and tell the story as to why they're playing their sport at Ball State. Anyone can produce or edit things that are flashy and look good, but can you tell a story? And at Ball State, I think we really teach that, and the success is evident.
Welcome back to the Cards Court, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie. We're joined now alongside myself and Jordan Klimes with Ball State Athletic Director Jeff Mitchell. Jeff, thanks for being here.
Pleasure to be here, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you're in your first full year as the athletic director of the university. How did you get to Ball State, and where were you at before this?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a privilege to be visiting with you. I appreciate this opportunity. My journey to Ball State was an interesting one. I was most recently the deputy director of athletics at the University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I'm a Mississippi native. Grew up in the state of Mississippi, went to school in Mississippi, went to Millsaps College in Jackson, Mississippi, played baseball, and then began my career at Millsaps as the director of sports information. I was also going to MBA school and coaching baseball at the same time, and then I went to law school at Ole Miss and worked in the athletic department while I was in law school, and then went out to California and spent almost 13 years at Santa Clara University. When I was back at Southern Miss as the deputy AD, I was looking for opportunities to lead a department. And when the Ball State position opened, I was curious about it because I thought it might be a profile that fit my expertise, that fit the type of institution that I was interested in serving. It was a little bit unknown from the geographical standpoint. Okay, so it was a little further north than I'd ever been before in my career. But reputationally, Ball State, to me, was very strong. I've told this countless times to people here. When I think of the MAC, or when I thought of the MAC prior to being here, the first institution that always popped to mind was Ball State. That's a testament to the strength of the brand. So when the position was open, I was really excited about at least researching it, seeing if in fact it was something that I might be able to get involved in. And sure enough, I had a conversation with the search firm that was tasked with identifying candidates for the position. And the more I learned through that process, the more I was learning on my own through research, I decided that this was an opportunity that I needed to explore and go after. And then things took off as the process continued to unfold. But that process was invigorating. It was exhilarating. I learned so much about the university and the athletics department that I knew that if the committee and the president were willing to take a chance on a guy from Southern Miss, that I would give it 100%, and because my values align with those of the institution. And so it's been a perfect match, in my opinion, and I'm fired up to be a Cardinal.
And you said something before. You said when you think of the MAC, you kind of thought of Ball State and their athletics. So why does Ball State stand out in that way?
Well, I think you've got a history of success from an athletic standpoint, and it's wide-ranging, from basketball in the 90s to your volleyball prowess, your long history of baseball success. You've had your ups and downs from a football standpoint, and just holistically, the department has been really good. So as a student of intercollegiate athletics and studying the different levels of intercollegiate athletics, looking at the different leagues, seeing what schools in those leagues would be appealing to as a place to work, Ball State was just it for me in the MAC. And I never thought in a million years that the opportunity would present itself, but it did, and here we are. So just the strength of the brand is really the way to answer that question.
Yeah, I would say the majority of our listeners know who you are. They know you're the athletic director, but I think a lot of them maybe aren't quite sure what you're doing behind the scenes. So to put it bluntly, like, what do you do besides just oversee everything at Ball State?
Yeah, it's a neat job description because there's no day that is dull, right? Never a dull day in intercollegiate athletics generally, but especially in the seat that I occupy. So the first way to answer the question is that I do oversee and direct the 19 sports programs that we sponsor at Ball State, and oversee a staff of 130 full-time employees and graduate assistants to put forth the most competitive teams that we possibly can year in, year out, season in, season out, and to develop a culture within the department that is rooted in education and rooted in growth and development of the human being. That requires a lot of time, from external relations to internal relations, business affairs, fundraising, to working on championship performance initiatives, which is where we really spend a lot of time to develop our programs. Spending time with coaches, spending time with student athletes, going to practice, going to competition, doing community-related events, spending time with the media. So it takes up a lot of time. There's also a level of strategy behind what we do too. And as an example, I told our staff the first 6 months of my tenure here would be a deeply observational time for me to observe how we operate, for me to observe who performs at a high level and who doesn't, because it's important for me to have a staff that is positive, is communicative, is willing to help each other, and has this growth mindset. So I had to observe that. At the same time, I had to make some hires right away, too. The first person that was hired on the staff was a gentleman by the name of Kevin Messenger. Kevin serves as our assistant athletic director for communications, is a veteran in media relations, sports information, very familiar with Indianapolis and the state of Indiana, and he's been a tremendous asset to our team at Ball State. But more than that, I had to put people in the right places so that they could maximize our team. So I spent a lot of time in the first 6 months of my tenure here to solidify that team. So I started in late March, mid-March, March 20th, and the goal was to have our team in place by the beginning of football season. We were a little shy of that mark by a few weeks, but that team is in place now. We created some depth on that team, adding some positions that didn't exist, mostly on the external side. But from a senior leadership standpoint, that senior team is now in place. Organizational behavior, organizational health is really important to me. That fosters that culture that I talk about, that culture of excellence. That's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that nobody sees, but I did talk about it, because it's really important. I often say that we win with our people, and that hiring people is the most important element of our culture. I firmly believe that. It's something that I go to work every day thinking about my teammates. I call them my teammates, and knowing that they're going to have a positive impact on the people that they serve, which includes our coaches, our support staff, and our student athletes.
Yeah. Well, it is behind the scenes, but I think a lot of Ball State fans only see the Ball State product when it's out on the court, and there's a lot more that goes on, as we know as members of the media, and that as one that the head honcho in charge of doing everything. And we're going to hear a lot more from you on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Cards Court. We'll be right back with more from Ball State Athletic Director Jeff Mitchell. This is presented by Victory Honda of Muncie.
To catch the best stories in Ball State sports every month, tune in to the award-winning show, SportsLink Stories, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie. Victory Honda of Muncie is proud to support the creative storytellers of Ball State SportsLink.
Welcome back to the Cards Court. I'm Griffin Leonard alongside Jordan Klimes, and with us today is Ball State Athletic Director Jeff Mitchell. Jeff, big matchup in Ball State basketball on Friday, a couple of big matchups, and the first home doubleheader hosted this season, and it included one of the nation's best in Notre Dame. What is the planning like going into an event like that, and how do you get all your internal pieces moving in the right direction?
Well, we had penciled this date at the beginning of the summer, knowing that we were going to host a doubleheader on that day, with the marquee matchup being the game against Notre Dame. So we began some early planning efforts over the summer to, again, just highlight the fact that we had presumptively a top 25 team coming in to Worthen, which ended up being the case, and that we were going to stack the games in a way in which we were going to highlight the women's game. So our external team went to work, especially as the fall season began, certainly ramped up as basketball season began. Give a lot of credit to not only our external staff under the direction of Haven Fields, who serves as our deputy athletics director, but also our women's basketball staff. They did a really great job in helping promote the event and getting out in the community. Sometimes it's really good to have your staff and players too, for that matter, to be involved in not so much the planning, but the execution of that plan. And I give him credit. I thanked Coach Sally after the game for the contributions that he and his staff made to that end, and certainly proud of our staff and what all the effort that went into making that a fantastic atmosphere. So looking back on it, of course, we had over 4,000 fans for the men's game, which started at 2 o'clock. The men played Arkansas Pine Bluff, and then the women tipped at 5, and we had an arena record of 5,442 individuals in attendance for the women's game against Notre Dame. That is the most collection of people, or the biggest collection of people that has watched a women's basketball game at Ball State in Worthen Arena.
As far as scheduling something like that, I think that like you see the schedules come out on Twitter and on the website, but the actual process of scheduling is one that not a whole lot of people are familiar with. I know a lot of students were disappointed that the game wasn't when people were in town, but it's not that simple, is it? Like how does that scheduling work?
Yes, scheduling is incredibly difficult, and would we have loved for that game to have fallen on or at a time where students were here? Without question. It just didn't work that way. You've got a lot of games in that Thanksgiving week. Most institutions are out that Thanksgiving week, so that's why a lot of teams elect to go on the road and play during Thanksgiving. For our teams, given the schedule on the women's side where they've got a gap in a home schedule, I mean, they don't play again at home until December 30th, the timing was ripe for a home game during that time frame. For the men, the schedule was ripe for a young team to play some games at home at Thanksgiving so that they could be more comfortable in hopes of building our win-loss record, which mission accomplished on that front. But the scheduling is difficult. In the basketball world, coaches handle scheduling. That's in contrast to football, for example, where it's more led by administrators in terms of scheduling games. So from the basketball front, is there some administrative involvement? Yes, in terms of when to play the games on the dates that work in the calendar time-wise. But from a pure scheduling standpoint, it's really up to the coaches. They know their teams the best. They know their schedule the best in terms of how to fit games in within the confines of the season. For a game like Notre Dame, it takes a partnership on the part of the opposing coach to be willing to participate in home-and-home type of environments or type of contests. Credit to Notre Dame's coach for hosting us last year and being willing to come to Worthen this year. Sometimes when you're talking about those top teams, those Power 5 teams in basketball, it's hard to do that. But that's a good in-state relationship I think we have with Notre Dame.
And kind of sticking with the culture you're trying to build in Worthen Arena, specifically for basketball, something new you added this year was the courtside seats, something that maybe was a gap. So kind of just explain what that move was. Why did you decide to add the courtside seats this year? Yeah,
thanks for asking that question. I was named Director of Athletics on February the 6th. And I didn't start until March the 20th. I had some things I had to finish up responsibility-wise at Southern Miss. And so I was doing my Southern Miss job during the mornings, and I was the Ball State AD in the afternoons, which was great because it coincided with me being able to watch Ball State basketball. And as I was watching games intently and objectively, trying to view not only as a fan would view it, but also with my hat as the new athletic director, what I was seeing on TV was, I think we've got a missed opportunity here of not having enough courtside seats. There were some, but to me, there were the tables where our media would sit, which you guys may not like the fact that there's courtside seats now, and you're displaced to the upper reaches of Worthen. But from a fan standpoint and a fan engagement and a revenue generation standpoint, quite frankly, we needed to add courtside seats. So I actually began having conversations with some of my staff during the middle of the season last year, or the tail end of the season, saying, hey, let's add a few here and there. And we did, and they sold very quickly. So that told me that, hey, if we make a commitment to having courtside seating for this upcoming season, the 23-24 season, then we got a chance to sell out. So we began to plan that. As a matter of fact, when I arrived on March 20th, one of the first meetings that I had was on the floor in Worthen Arena, and we mapped out courtside seating for this next year because we wanted to capitalize on the momentum from the men's program in particular just the success that we'd had with 20 wins, and that bled into the success of the women's team as well, because we wanted to add courtside seating for the women's games too, is how many can we get that's comfortable? And so we decided that we could get 20 seats on either side of the court, with the announcer's table, radio and TV in the center of the floor. And then we could have 10 courtside seats on the baselines, so a total of 60 seats. On the men's side, that was 30-plus uptick from the previous year. And on the women's side, it was almost entirely new. There were a handful of courtside seats that were sold in previous years for women's games. But now we've got 60 for both games, and they're all sold out.
Yeah, I talked to somebody who has one of those courtside seats for the women's team. I know that the deal that they were pushing out was $100 for the season for the women's courtside, and he was telling me, and maybe his information was off, but from what it sounded like is that you got there were various benefits of having those courtside seats with concessions as well. And I guess the question I had from you was, you talked about revenue. How are you guys making any money with those seats being so cheap?
Well, it's the women's tickets are cheaper. The men's tickets are higher, and that's a demand issue. We've learned a lesson on the women's side, because they sold so rapidly, that we'll probably make a market adjustment going into next year on that. But to your point, Griffin, about the amenities, so we have wanted to make those courtside seats, those patrons in those seats, feel very much at home. So not only are they in a great setting to watch a college basketball game, but now they can just go to one end of the arena and grab a beverage, a snack that is included in the price of the ticket, and take it back to their seat and enjoy. And they don't have to go up the stairs to concessions. Now, if they want some other items, some specialty items, then they're certainly free to do that. But just to grab a quick snack, popcorn, and a beverage, it's right there for them. It's easy. It makes the experience fun and convenient. Overall, we're going to produce some revenue. We've gotten some sponsors for some of those snacks and beverages, which helps defray the cost of what it would take to provide those amenities to our fans. So at the end of the day, it's been a good success.
Yeah. Well, if you need to get a quick snack or beverage at home, I suggest you do so now. We're going to take another break. When we get back, we'll have more with Ball State Athletic Director Jeff Mitchell here on the Cards Court, presented by Victory Honda Muncie here on the SL Digital Radio Network.
Every road has its challenges. We say, bring them on. At Honda, we engineer each vehicle to outthink obstacles, to overcome difficult conditions. We engineer them for drivers who are determined to power through, just like you are. Rise to the challenge with the rugged performance of the Honda Passport, Pilot, and CR-V.
Welcome back to the Cards Court. Griffin, Leonard alongside Jordan Klimes and Ball State Athletic Director Jeff Mitchell. Jeff, we've talked about you trying to establish growing this program and different areas that you're really pushing right now to expand and grow. Just looking at overall growing the program and long-term goals for you as you continue to have this job.
Yeah. Again, thank you for the question. It's multifaceted. The first thing is that I want to dominate the MAC. Like that is the mindset that we have in our athletics department. It's a message that I've conveyed internally, not only to our staff, but our coaches. I think that's trickled down to the student athletes. I want us to be the best in class in the Mid-American Conference. In order to do that, we are very methodically going through the various areas of the athletics department to ensure that the vision and the performance of what we do on a daily basis contributes to that end. So we've got a staff in place that I would consider excellent. I think we've got an excellent collection of coaches that are aligned with that vision. You know, we just came off a year in which Ball State had the best women's athletics department in the league, the second best men's athletics department in the league, just in terms of performance. The caveat on that men's side is the Ball State men's volleyball team and their championship did not count in those standings because they're not a part of the Mid-American Conference. Had that championship counted, I would think that we would have won the trophy for the best men's athletics department in the conference. We also received the Institutional Achievement Award, which signifies the strongest athletics department for academics in the league, and it's the first time that's ever happened in Mid-American Conference history. So we're operating from a position of strength, which is why I can confidently say that I want to dominate the MAC in all those facets. The staff's in place. That's number one. Now we've got to address other issues, facilities, for example. One of the things that we're beginning to talk about more publicly is that we're going down the path of building a sport performance center, which is going to be a brand new structure just on to the, I'm directionally challenged here, but it's going to be adjacent to the Shondell Practice Center on the La Follette Field side. It won't go into La Follette Field, but it'll be just right next to it, kind of right outside Worthen. That's going to be a more than 10,000 square foot space, predominantly for strength and conditioning, which I'm rebranding as power and speed. Okay, so I'm going to try not to use strength and conditioning going
power
forward.
And speed, I like
power
it.
and speed, you like it? I do too. So that facility is going to be a game changer for Ball State athletics. More than 80% of our student athletes will enjoy life. We'll put it that way. Their workout life in that new facility when we get it built. Football has their own facility. It's not to say that football student athletes won't reap the benefits of this new facility. They will. It just won't be as much as the other 18 sports that we sponsor. In addition to that facility, we're going to convert the current weight room inside Worthen into a state-of-the-art sports medicine facility, complete with all the new things that are going on in sports medicine right now, in addition to a hydrotherapy space, for recovery and rehabilitation purposes for our student athletes, something that we don't have right now. All of that is under the umbrella of championship performance. So we hired a professional, Dr. Lindsay Blom, who's been a longtime faculty member at Ball State and served most recently as our faculty athletics representative to become the associate athletic director for championship performance. So she's going to oversee everything from sports med, power and speed, nutrition, mental health, to help develop and program what I want to be the best championship performance program in the MAC, if not, in the country. So that's another element of devotion to student athlete success that we want to develop. At the same time, we need to continue to generate revenue, whether it's through fundraising, whether it's through ticket sales, courtside seats, things like that. But those are really the three buckets. So it's having the staff in place, it's being able to produce and develop facilities that are really going to impact the student athlete experience and lead to success, and then revenue generation. The fourth element that I would add to that is community engagement and being Muncie's team. We want Ball State to be Muncie's team, and it doesn't matter which sport, but to continue to encourage fans locally to come and watch intercollegiate athletics. I think we've got a great brand across all 19 of our sports. We've got great facilities where you can watch us play, and we want to be more involved in the Muncie community and East Central Indiana as much as we can, and we got to spend more time, with the influencers in those spaces, and I'm committed to doing that just as we continue to grow and develop our program.
Yeah, you mentioned quite a few things there, but one thing that stood out to me, you mentioned academics at one point. I think sometimes it's easy to forget that these guys are student athletes and that they have academics as well as their schedules. And I mean, these guys they got a tough schedule, that's for sure. And the NCAA prioritizes academics. I know, for example, in football, like 5 and 7 teams, that ranking then is determined by academics, not strength of schedule, not anything relating to football. What are you guys doing to encourage those student athletes to improve their academic status, to continue to win those awards like you talked about winning this last year? Yeah,
it's a really important component of what we do. And make no mistake, that is why we are in this business, is to educate young men and women to improve themselves, to be meaningful contributors to society. Chief of that is getting a Ball State degree and enjoying the benefits of being in college and being in an environment that is enriching, being in an environment that is conducive to having amazing dialogue from which you learn. And so our job as an athletics department is to contribute to that end. So we're very supportive of the academic mission of the institution. We're very, very supportive of the role that we play as being educators, and certainly within CCIM and SportsLink. I think you guys appreciate the fact that that I'm so entrenched in wanting to help you guys in what you're doing, and certainly that trickles down to our staff. I mentioned Kevin Messenger earlier. He's of the same mind. And to take it to the next level, we have a great relationship with our Student Athlete Support Services staff. That staff technically reports through the Provost's office, but the relationship is so strong that Laura Hillenberg, who is the director of that staff, has a dotted line relationship to me and is on our senior leadership team. She's a fantastic addition to our staff and is developing that program to be excellent in every sense of the word. And so we are devoted and committed to the academic success of our student athletes. And that goes for all 450 of those student athletes. We will never waver from that commitment. That's the first priority. Anecdotally, I'll share with you, when I share a philosophy about athletics in the construct of higher education, I talk about the student athlete being the pitcher's mound. I'm a baseball guy. Okay, so the student athlete is the pitcher's mound. First base is commitment to academic excellence. Okay, we can't achieve anything. We can't round the bases unless we touch first base. So first base has to be academic excellence. Second base is about institutional responsibility. That's where compliance, legal affairs come into play. We want to make sure that we are doing things that are permissible into how we are operating. Third base is about physical responsibility, physical integrity. We have to be good stewards of the resources entrusted to us. And if we do those things and then we keep the student athlete in the middle, then we can touch home plate, right? And that's winning championships. So we're not winning championships unless we're committed to academic excellence first.
All right, well, we're going to take a break. Thank you so much for joining us here on this afternoon's episode of The Cards Court. It's been awesome having you.
Thanks, guys. Go Cards.
Yep, we're going to take a break here on The Cards Court. When we get back, we'll hit you with PBP's keys, and we'll send you on your way. You're listening to The Cards Court on the SL Digital Radio Network, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie.
Victory Honda of Muncie. We're not just another car dealership, and here's why. We stand behind every car we sell and are dedicated to helping our customers save time and money. All our pre-owned cars undergo a rigorous 182-point inspection and come with a 90-day warranty to ensure that you're getting a Victory quality vehicle. Plus, you'll get 2 years of complimentary oil changes and tire rotations. We're part of a top 15 dealership group and have an enormous selection of vehicles with access to inventory at at over 45 locations. You always get more for your trade and the best possible rates with us. We have an excellent relationship with hundreds of lenders. Our exclusive car dock maintenance and membership program will help you save hundreds of dollars in the process of maintaining your vehicle. Lastly, our state-of-the-art body shop and certified technicians perform high-quality repairs and paintwork on most vehicle makes and models. Victory Honda of Muncie. We're not just another car dealership.
Welcome back to the Cards Court here on the SportsLink Digital Radio Network. Another big thank you to our guest, Jeff Mitchell. But for now, it's just back in the room with Jordan and I. And Jordan, it's time for PBP's Keys.
My favorite segment.
Let's do it. 3 keys for both of these teams to unlock if they really want to take advantage and get the maximum results in this week's games. Let's go first for men's basketball. You really got to stay aware defensively. I think that there was a little bit of a lapse over the course of that first half in the Pine Bluff game, and if you're going to get the job done in a couple of decent tests in Little Rock and Bellarmine, you really got to keep your defense awareness the full 40 minutes.
And that's the good thing about having a more tough non-conference schedule is you get these more intense games where you get to learn this stuff once they get to MAC play. I think they'll be able to tighten up a little bit. But as you said in that Pine Bluff game, Arkansas was winning after halftime, and then Ball State tightened it up towards the end. But you want to play a full game, and so I think that's something they have great coaching. As I said before, they'll learn that.
On the women's basketball side, tough loss against Notre Dame, but you really got to keep your head up.
Exactly, and I said it before, but I think they played really well. It's the most scrappy I've seen that team play, and they are still the same team they were before that game. They're one of the best that we've seen in a long time, and the expectations are high for them, so they have a lot of confidence. They're going to keep their head high.
And then our third key, the men's basketball team did this exceptionally well on Friday, but both teams, you got to continue to spread out the scoring. Like I said, the men's team doing a really good job of that. In the women's game, they did a decent job. They had to rely on bench production when the starters didn't pan out, and that's what they're going to have to do because you can't rely on your top 2 or 3 players to be on their game every single game, regardless of whether or not you'd like them to.
Right, and with both of these teams, it's kind of hard to distinguish one specific star because I feel like every game somebody else is highlighted, somebody else is having that standout game, and I think that's really good to have in both of these programs because the ball is being spread around. The defense doesn't know who's going to have the best game, and you really keep that other team on guard.
Well, that was PBP's Keys. Thank you, Jordan, for your insight. And looking ahead at the upcoming schedule, an interesting week awaits Ball State basketball. Men's basketball kicks things off on the road on Tuesday when they take on Arkansas Little Rock. Following that, neither team is in action until Saturday when the men's team plays host to the Bellarmine Knights. You can catch that game on SL Digital Radio with AJ Switek and Andrew Willett on the call. And then finally, women's basketball has their first and only contest of the week all the way on Sunday when they travel out to Missouri to take on St. Louis Billikens. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Cards Court. Don't forget to tune in next week when we talk to the Ball State superfan known as Sidelines Ball State about the teams and his long-standing Cardinal fandom. Until then, for Jordan Klimes and Ball State Athletic Director Jeff Mitchell, I'm Griffin Leonard signing off. The court is adjourned.
The Cards Court is hosted and produced by Griffin Leonard. Be sure to follow BSU SportsLink across social media for the best stories in Ball State sports. The Cards Court has been a production of Ball State SportsLink.